Hi students, welcome to video lecture series Renewable Energy Resources 18 EE 653 Module 1 Introduction to Energy Resources. Today we are going to see tidal power energy. We know that ocean tidal in the sense which is created in the ocean. So the tidal power is taken from the earth ocean slides or ocean tides. The tidal forces are periodic variation in the gravitational attraction exerted by the celestial body. That means in our earth we know that nearly 70% of the earth surface is covered with the ocean, that is full of water. These oceans are used to receive the energy, store the energy and dissipate the energy through physical process. So here we are using the resources called the help of ocean is nothing but tides. Three types of ocean in the three types of resources is used for the generation of electricity. One is tidal, one more is wave and ocean thermal. So here the tide and waves produce the mechanical energy, whereas the temperature difference produce the thermal energy. That is nothing but the ocean thermal. Tidal energy is a technology which is used to generate the electricity in terms of whenever the tide comes, with the help of tide, either high tide or low tide. The low tide is also called as ebb. So that infrastructure, that is a tidal wave infrastructure is fixed in the ocean. There is a small basin is used. Whenever the high tides comes, in the sense the reservoir, that basin will use it to store the water, high tide water, and once the low tide, in the sense the water which is stored in the reservoir will go out from the basin to the surface. So both, when high tide comes, the water is moving from sea surface to the reservoir, that is basin, through the a turbine which is connected to the generator. When the tides is over, in the sense, then the water which is stored in the reservoir will move from the basin to the surface, that is called low tide or ebb tide. During that time also it is passing through the turbine. So the turbine will rotate both the times, so which is connected to the generator, which will generate the electricity. This is the basic concept. How this tide is happening, in the sense it is happening due to the gravitational force between the sun and the moon and interacting with the waters. So interaction of gravitational fields of sun and moon, which will create the tides. The ocean level difference, which is caused due to the tides, contains in the large amount of potential energy. There are various types of tides are there. Whenever the interaction of between the celestial body, the time the tides will come like this height, as like a tsunami. Sometimes flood water also will come to. So it will not happen every time. it will happen 10 to 12 hours gap, interval gap. The highest level of the tidal water is known as flood tide or high tide. The lowest level of the water we call it as a low tide or ebb tide. The level difference between the high tide and low tide is known as tidal range. Tidal range is not common. It depends upon the location. This will be varied. Some of the sites will get the larger tidal, that is 5 meters or 6 meters or 10 meters. Tsunami time it was more than 10 meters. That is called a flood tide. So minimum of 5 meters we are considering as a high tide, which is suitable for the power generation. With the help of this high tide, we can able to generate 120,000 of megawatts power. So the tides are produced by the gravitational attraction of the moon and the sun, which is acting upon the rotating earth. The moon, which will exerts the large gravitational force on the earth closer than the sun. That time the surface water is pulled away from the earth on the side of the facing moon. At the same time, the solid earth is pulled away from the water on the opposite side. During the time, the ocean height increases both near side and far side, and the solid earth rotates with a period of 1 day. So these two bulges which is moving in the opposite direction. So every 12 hours the deep ocean have the wave periods. That is, we call it as tides. So here in this diagram, the tidal plant, this is nothing but the tidal plant. The first one is a low tide, second one is a high tide. So when the low tide comes, the water is going to be, high tide comes, there is a dam like a reservoir will be kept, and there is a water flow. In this water flow direction, one prime mover along with the turbine is connected. That is it. Prime mover along with the generator is connected. So when high tide comes, this wall will be open and the water will be stored in the reservoir. When the water level in the sea will be low, that time the water which is stored in the tidal basin will be flow into the other direction through the same turbine, which will generate the electricity with the help of generator. So what are the advantages and limitations? In the sense, it is free from pollution. Water is inexhaustible source which cannot be completed, which cannot be got over. The site of the plant we can consider as a dam, as like a hydropower station. In hydropower station, what we are doing in the sense, the water will be in the reservoir, and whenever the gate will be opened, then the water will flow through the channel through the turbine. So turbine will rotate, turbine will force to rotate due to the water flow. There is a penstock will be there. Penstock will limit the flow of water through the tube. So the water is flowing through the turbine, which is connected to the generator where the electricity is generated. Same principle is used in tidal power also. But the thing is, whenever high tide comes, the water will be saved. When low tide time, the saved water will be going to the sea. So while high tide is coming now, during that time, the water is flowing through the pipe. There is a turbine is kept. During that time also turbine will be rotated. Again, low tide time also the turbine is rotated. So both the periods the electricity is generated. But depend upon the water density, the pressure. So no submerging land or any boiler to be submerged in the earth is not required here. Basins also used for some fish farmings. Fish farming purpose also we can use it because the water will be saved in the basin reservoir as a reservoir. So we can use for the fish farming. Limitation in the sense it can be harnessed only if the natural sites are available. Artificially we cannot able to create, but we can create it by using the pumps. But the outcome, that is the output, the electricity will be very low. It is suitable for the sites mostly base which is far away from the load center. So we have to carry the electricity which is produced in the location to the field side. So the transmission cost is very high. And also the operation is uneven because sometimes the water high tide will come, sometimes low tide will come. The turbine has to rotate with varying water heads. The output power is variable, not fixed. At the same time, the construction of the dam will take more time. Maybe 5 years or it may be 10 years. And construction also costly. Sedimentation and silt deposition in the basin takes place in the regular manner, which has to be removed properly. And power output also varies based upon the lunar cycle. And supply of power depends upon the timing of tides. It is not a continuous in nature. Sometimes the dams or the basins, the equipments may be affected due to the corrosive. Seawater is corrosive, no? So that may affect the equipment, power equipment. And the efficiency of the plant is affected due to variable tide energy. More turbines are to be used to obtain the sufficient power. So how the tidal power is classified in the sense there are many ways. Based upon the basin we can classify single basin system, double basin system. Or based upon the tidals we can consider that low tide system and high tide system. Where it is located in India in the sense Gulf of Kutch, Gujarat, Gulf of Kambat, Gujarat, Sundarban Delta, West Bengal, Gulf of Cambay, Gujarat, Pitts Creek, like West Bengal. These are the places this is available. So advantages, these are the advantages. Development of tidal power is economic aspects of the tidal power schemes when compared to a conventional scheme. The problem associated with the construction and operation of the plant and problem related to the hydraulic balance. So this is nothing but high tide and this is nothing but low tide. That means high tide means coming inside to the reservoir and low tide in the sense going outside from the reservoir. Next we'll see the wave energy.